Hey you guys, it's your girl AJ, the Glamour Witch, and I'm back for another video. As soon as I start talking, a dog is barking. I'm here today to talk to you about portal magic. This work is so exciting because we are going to be referencing a book called The Octavo. Shout out to the Black Sage Apothecary on TikTok and on Instagram for recommending this book to me. I love her content. She's amazing. Go ahead and follow her on all her social media platforms, which I'm going to link down below. She's incredible. She's great stuff on her shop. You're not going to want to miss any of that. So go send her some love and tell her that I sent you to her. Okay. We're going to talk about some of the premises and some of the theory in this book and how it actually ties in with portal magic. Now, when I found this book, when she recommended, she actually referenced The Magicians, which is a TV show on Sci-Fi, and you can also watch it on Netflix. And if you've seen this TV show, then you already know that a lot of the stuff in the show has a lot of basis in actual magical theory. They don't just like come out with some whimsical bullshit. Like, some of it's whimsical, of course, but there's a lot of it that's actually real. And I appreciate like TV shows that do their research and aren't just making up shit. And one of the actual episodes in the TV show was of Elliot and Margot trying to send a message to the past to Josh and Fen to try to tell them what they can do to change some of these different things to affect the current time period that they were in. And the way that they did that was through a magical stamp, and then you address it to the person and the time period of that person or that state of being, right? Your target. And what happens is that individual gets the message in that period of time during whatever that situation is, and is able to send a message back with that same stamp with a similar function and pathway, right? So that functionality of using portal magic to kind of go back in time and even go forward in time to kind of impact whatever is going to happen now is really interesting. I don't know if in the actual show she was able to go forward in time, but I think it was any time period at any point. Anyways, the point is I figured out how to make it into a spell, and the results were surprising, and I wanted to share it with you guys. So if you're interested in learning more, just keep watching.
Come and cast a spell with me. Come and cast a spell with me.
So like I said, the book that we're going to be talking about is The Octavo. Now, I want to first start by saying, if you're not somebody who likes math and you're not somebody who likes dense books, you're probably not going to fuck with this, okay? I'm going to try to break it down in layman's terms, but even I don't really understand it to maybe its fullest degree. I understand the premises of it, and I understand the basics of it, and I understand it enough to see how people are using it in magical practices and the functionality that I can use it. But if you want to really dive deep, I would suggest that you actually go get the book itself and explore it. And it's not just about portal magic. It has a lot of really great things. There is things on binding and spinning and illusion work and practical magic and subtle magic and narratives and all types of stuff. So you want to go in there and you want to just peel back the layers. It also gives you some really great tips on how to go about actually doing ritual work, specifically how to best utilize the information that's in that book, right? But, you know, I like to just do whatever the fuck I want to do and figure out if it works or not. And if it doesn't, then it doesn't. But it did work. And I feel like this is something that I want to share with you. Now, if you found this video, or if you're following me now from my TikTok, welcome. Thank you for joining us. If you've been here for a minute, then you already know I love to experiment and try new and kind of maybe odd approaches on magic to find something that works. And when it does, you know I'm gonna come here and I'm gonna let you guys know, okay? So again, like I said in the intro, this specific book is so fascinating because it does illuminate a lot of elements in this TV show called The Magicians. And specifically, the element of being able to speak to a past or a future version of yourself for a divinatory purpose, right? To get information. Now, the further in time or the closer it is will affect the probability of that information being true or false. So I wouldn't try to contact somebody who's, you know, my 90-year-old version of myself if I'm alive that long, right? But I want to try to target or connect to a version of myself that's relatively close in spectrum and probable, right? If I know that I'm going to be in a competition, I might not need to go ask myself when I'm 30, the 30-year-old version of myself, how that ended up. I just need to know the person. I need to connect to the person who has already gone through that, maybe immediately after that competition. What did you learn from that situation? What did you get out of that situation? Is there anything that you would have changed? How can I best prepare myself? How can I stand in my power in that situation? And that's not that far away. Maybe that competition is in 2 weeks or something like that. It's closer in time, and it's more probable that you're going to hit the target rather than worried about trying to talk to the version of yourself that's, you know, I don't know, married with kids. If that makes any sense. Because you really don't know how far away that period of time is. And we're going to get into the difference between entanglement and superposition, okay? So first, let's just talk about what linking is. Linking is using astral light as a pathway to a desired target, specifically a time, whether that be in the future or in the past. And this understanding of astral light, which is just basically a fancy word for the astral plane or the etheric realm, right? Where all these simultaneous timelines are able to manifest themselves. With quantum like jumping or quantum theory, we understand that there are similar and different timelines happening at the same time in parallel universes. If you take that information and you apply it to trying to connect to a version of yourself that exists in the future, you only have to align and kind of match up on the same frequency to find the timeline in which that person or that thing already exists. A lot of you guys have done the 2-cup method, manifestation, and all the other things. So you already are kind of familiar with this concept. I hope you are, if you're doing the 2-cup method or if you're trying to quantum leap into a different timeline. And basically what that just means is you're basically just shaking hands with the timeline that you want to go into. And it's not that you're like leaving or, you know, swapping. What it is that you're overlaying those two timelines and just stepping into it as though it was always yours, leaving behind the other timeline and not being affected by anything that was happening in that timeline. This is a little bit similar, not really, but it's similar in the fact that we are going to be shaking hands with the timeline that we want to affect or get information from, but we're not going to try to swap into it. We are acknowledging that that timeline already exists. We are acknowledging that that version of ourselves is coming in the future, but we're not trying to swap into it. We're only trying to get information from it. So instead of trying to merge with it, we're almost trying to call it up and have a phone call conversation with it to ask some questions. So it's better to visualize it in that space than in the form of I'm stepping into this new reality, right? Because you don't want to leave where you are now. You want to stay here and still exist and go along with the timeline. You just want a little bit more information. So I want to just clarify again that the further away that you're asking, the harder it is to pinpoint how effective that information is going to be. It's also harder to know if there are going to be other variables that you are not even thinking about, right? You may want to know if you're going to get married with kids, but there could be a ton of things that happen in that in-between space. And who knows what version of yourself that you're going to be, contacting. Are you at the beginning, the middle, or the end of that marriage? All these things are playing a factor that you really can't pinpoint. Whereas if you're going to the past and you're speaking to a past version of yourself that you wanted to, have a conversation with to maybe adjust, I don't know, how you feel about yourself, or to not hold on to some negative emotion or memory or something of that nature. I'm not saying that that's what this spell can do for you, but it's something that's interesting enough to actually start to engage with and try to see if you can implement that in your practice in some way. When you understand the basic theory of it, you can kind of begin to mold spells and rituals around that understanding and see what works. So if you're going into the past version of yourself, you know that this situation has already happened, it's already occurred, and you know how to pinpoint it and target it with your magic and your intention in a more direct way. In the future, it's a little bit more tricky to do that. So I would, again, just keep your the realm of possibility for where this can go. Keep it within a realistic time frame, right? Don't go 30 years into the future, maybe 2 weeks or a month into the future of what it is that could or possibly will happen. I would say even maybe 2 or 3 months into the future, and be open to the messages that are going to come through. Don't ask direct questions. Leave a little bit of space for anything that wants to come through, because we also know that there is a certain degree of information that you shouldn't know that could negatively impact how you are going to end up to get to where you need to go. So you don't want to spoil it, right? And I don't think your future self would allow that to happen. But if we're going into the theory and the premise of timelines and parallel universes and all that stuff, you know, they always say, like, don't mess up the timeline. Don't, you know, you're going to fuck up how things fall into place. And that's probably kind of why I've been having all these weird technical things every time I try to film this, and there's always like some type of interruption or some type of weird thing happening when I try to film and talk about this. It's almost like they don't want me to tell you guys this information, but I'm gonna do it anyways because I like a little rebellion. You already know I like a little rebellion. So anyways, the point that I'm making is don't expect your future self to spoil it for you. You still have to do the work. You still have to implement the information that they give you. And you still have to be open to the possibility of alternate situations happening that get you there. The point is not to know everything that's going to happen to you in the future. The point is to maybe have some clue-ins on how to continue to stay in the same timeline towards the intended outcome. If you know that you're manifesting or you're calling into fruition a big job opportunity, you know you want to go into business for this, you know you want to have this type of a lifestyle, and that you know that right now you are committed to that timeline. If you are to match up with the same timeline where you already have the thing that you're committing to right now, what would that person tell you that you should be doing every day? How do you wake up in the morning? How do you interact with yourself and your body and your surroundings in your space? All of these things can be really great indications on how to continue to stay steadfast on the path. Or maybe you just want a little tiny bit of information about a specific topic. Maybe you're facing some type of adversity or struggle or something, and you just want to know if it's going to get better, or if there's going to be some situation, or if there's something that you need to change and adjust that will bring about this relief that you're not seeing currently, that your future self could give you insight and information to. I don't know if you guys have ever done this like as a journaling or a writing technique, but I used to do this a lot. I would write to the past version of myself when I was younger, whatever the case might be, and I would write little messages saying, you know, the things that I wish that I would have known, and the ways that I wish, what would I say to myself with the information that I know now. And it's a great way to, one, track that you're learning and you're growing and that you're expanding as a human being, and that you are taking in these moments and having a introspective reflection on what it is that's happening in your life. You're not just letting life happen to you, but it also kind of feeds into the narrative that we are aware of our past self just as much as we are aware of there as a potential for our future self. Even though we don't know when we're going to die, we don't know what's going to happen in the future, and what happened in the past has already happened. Well, the only thing that really truly exists is the present moment. So just know that when you're doing this, don't try to leave where you are right now. Be here, be present. But this work is really interesting and fascinating because it reaches into a realm of understanding that goes beyond even kind of magic and steps into the etheric and going into different types of parts of the universe that a lot of us are not thinking about. And the way that we interact with this can serve us in our magical practice. It can enlighten us in the ways that we are manifesting or doing spells and ritual work. I've spent many times where I've gone back and, wrote a letter to myself, the younger version of myself. And I just think to myself, how amazing would that have been if I could have sent back that information? And how many times did I have deja vu, or I felt like I knew the answer to something and I didn't know why I knew the answer to it? Was that a future version of myself that had sent me information that I didn't actually know? Was I on a subconscious level sending myself messages from the future to make adjustments and to move and operate and to vibrate and take action in a way that I probably wouldn't have without that insight, right? And if you think about it, it's very possible. And why not directly and intentionally go about speaking to that future version of yourself instead of kind of waiting for those flashes to kind of appear in your life organically. And again, some people say don't mess with the timelines, whatever the case may be. It's up to you. And I ain't here to tell you what to do. I'm just here to give you the tea. Okay? Before we get started, I do want to speak about one more thing. There is a difference between the entanglement aspect of linking and the superposition aspect of linking. And we are going to be focusing on the entanglement. Entanglement occurs where a light path exists between events separated by space. Okay? So the light path between your future self and your present and you, or your past self and you. And this is the astral light, that the pathway or the links that get you to where you want to go, okay? Now, the superposition occurs where probabilities in the same place lie separate by sideways imaginary time. And I'm looking down because I have my notes here, because honestly, I wouldn't be able to just like memorize this off the top of my head. But the point that I'm making is we're not going to just be tapping into anything. We are effectively trying to reach the future version of ourselves. We're opening that portal and we're entangling ourselves with that version of ourselves. Okay? So this specific spell working was a just test, because I did want to implement some of the things I already like about magic and some of the things that I know help me mentally get into the space, in the zone, and implement things like herbs and oils and the magical tools and rituals that I already use and I already know. I'm also going to be talking about light and sound frequencies and those things, and how even temperature plays a role in potentially bringing in elements and directing energy flow towards certain things and keeping that portal open up long enough for you to get the messages back and forth. It does take a little bit of meditation and acceptance for whatever it is that comes back to you. You may not get the answers or the response that you were hoping for, but you will get something. And whatever that is, it's important for you to be okay with those messages. Again, like I said, you never know what it is that you have to go through to get the things that you want in the future. And if your future self were to spoil it for you, maybe you wouldn't do the things that you needed to do, or maybe you would change something slightly and I don't know, mess it up. I don't know how it works in the timeline of it, but I do know that this is something that you definitely want to add to your witchy spell book, and maybe even try to expand in your own way. So if you want to learn how to do the spell, we're going to jump in. I'm going to teach you how I did my work, and then I'm going to talk to you about my results. So let's do it. All right, you guys. So this may look like a lot of stuff. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But this is what I did for the work that I'm doing, and these steps helps me not only to get into the process of sending this message across, but it also helped me to stay in meditation long enough to receive that message back, right? So I have here a piece of parchment paper that I have blessed. You could use a regular piece of paper, that's all you have. And I have an envelope. I also have this is a magical stamp. And this stamp just has a sigil on it that I created on Sigil Engine. I don't know if you guys know about this website where it actually will create sigils for you. And basically the sigil is to be able to send messages to the future. Okay? So that's what this sigil is for. I have a white candle, a plain white candle that I've already kind of used, but I'm just using, this is our light energy. I'm going to be using my Magick Enchantment Oil. You can purchase that on my website. I'll be writing my letter in moon ink, and this is from the Pandora witch shop. I'm going to be doing this work in a Tibetan singing bowl, and there is a specific reason for that, and you'll see in a second. I'm also going to be using my matrix key. I actually created this matrix key during the pandemic when I was really trying to get in contact and travel to see some of my friends in the astral realm through dreams, lucid dreaming, this heightened psychic intuition, and I really wanted to be able to portal jump and do a lot of work in my dream state, since I really wasn't able to go anywhere. So anytime I took a nap or when I went to bed at night, I would travel, and this is what I'm going to be using to help send this off. I also have some crystals here. We have clear quartz and amethyst. We have some moon water, and then this is from Conjure Cardia. This is her flying oil, and again, this is just going to cater to the energy of sending something off. She uses this more for meditation and things of that nature, but it's still, a witch's flying oil is for things like lucid dreaming and to send them into like a higher realm or higher state of being. So it makes sense. And last but not least, we are going to be using some ice cubes, okay? And you'll see why we're doing that in just a second. So first things first, we are going to write our letter, our message to our future self. Now I'm going to just pass this through the frankincense and just kind of begin to enchant this work. If you have other things that you like to use as a way to bless items and prepare them for ritual work, then you can do that as well. That's really what this process is for. And of course, incense are always great. So we are going to write to our future selves. So I'm going to come right back and you'll see what I'm doing. Okay, so I have written to my future self, the one who's already organized and packed up all my stuff, because I will be moving soon. So I actually wanted to ask what's the best way to move my stuff and if I need to do some other things in whatever case. As you can see, I addressed it to the future me who finally organized and packed up my stuff, right? I'm not going too far ahead into the future, but I'm going to have a specific target of that version of me that I want to be talking to. Then I asked my questions. I had 3 questions here, main questions that pretty relatively easy to answer and won't do any negative damage that I know my future self would appreciate me asking. And then I signed my name and then I put past me. Okay? So, which I guess technically would be present me, I guess, whatever. But you don't have to put that at all. You can just leave it. I actually crossed mine out. So, but on my original one, that's what I put. So this is your petition paper, okay? And again, I'm going to pass it through a little smoke. Remember this whole process, everything, obviously I'm teaching you it, so I'm not doing all the steps that I would be doing without having to talk and interrupt myself in the middle of this. But you're going to be thinking about, this is now a magical piece of paper. This is a magical, a messenger that you're sending. So you want to bless it and enchant it with that energy and that intention, all right? And so now we've completed this. I'm going to take some of my matrix key and I'm going to spritz it. Just a little bit. Not too much. Because you don't want it to be too soggy and wet, you know. Still has ink on it, so. And we're going to bless it and activate it with our intention. All right, so now we have our envelope here, which is, again, addressed to our future self who has accomplished what we wanted to accomplish already. And, you know, the return address is me on this date, okay? And I'm, again, going to pass it through some frankincense. In the inside of the envelope, everything is getting anointed. And I'm going to also bless my stamp, that this be the way that it passes through, makes its way to my future self, right? It links me to the future. Okay. So now all we gotta do, actually, I'm just gonna, well, because they're sending it away from us. Okay. And I would lick it for your DNA. Remember, you're not gonna be getting this back, so shouldn't matter. Okay, and it's ready. Now we're going to use our flying oil, and I literally went around in a circle, circling where this is flying to. And you're gonna bless and activate your anointed area. All right. So our envelope is ready. Now we're going to move on to our portal. Okay, so something that you want to remember is there are two things that are going to happen in this next part. We are going to be creating magical water, and water is going to be the portal access way. And we're going to use light and sound frequency as a way to enhance and tune into the place that we want to send this to, where we want to go. Once the portal is open, we've opened it and we've decided to keep it here, we're almost like freezing that portal so that it does not close, right? We're keeping it right where it's at. We're freezing it, we're stopping it from wavering left or right or going into other potential timelines. And because it's not frozen solid, there's still liquid there. It's just going to keep it cold so that it can, you know, symbolically keep it in that place. But it's not going to be frozen, you know, obviously, because there's still liquid there, whatever the case may be. And we're going to be using moon water as a form to access this state of celestial awareness of the cosmos and passage through different timelines, right? Because the what's more celestial than the moon, right? So we are going to add our moon water, and this was from my last, I think this was from was that Aries full moon, and it's just a little bit. As you can see, it's not that much. And so if you do this inside of a black cauldron, it will kind of serve to be almost like a scrying situation. I'm also going to take my gemstone crystals, and you can bless and activate these gemstone crystals to help amplify the opening of the portal and the delivery of psychic information between you and your future self, so that it can, that telephone conversation can come in as psychic download, more than like images or hearing a voice or something like that. It comes through in the psychic speedway, and that place, that higher frequency, especially when we're talking about like the third eye chakra, that higher frequency is a place where things can travel much more quickly than in a dense reality that we are currently in this 3D reality, where things move much slower and it's much harder to send messages and things through, especially through time and space and all other stuff. Okay, so that's kind of like the premise that we're basing this on. Okay, and so you can actually add these in here, and I like to do a little formation, so when we go to put our candle in, the candle can kind of like set on the crystals. But if that's not how, if you don't have points or whatever, and that's not how you want to do it, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't have to be in any specific formation. I just like it because it keeps the candle in place and it doesn't go left or right. Okay, so I'm gonna take a little bit of my my matrix key, Okay, and I'm just gonna do 3 little sprays in there. And I'm going to set intention that this be the portal gateway to our future self, that we connect to the version of ourselves who knows the answers to our questions, where this is going to be sent to. We are going to begin to speak that into the water, into the mixture, and allow it to be imbued. And then while we're chanting, connecting in a meditative state, sending energy, opening the portal, you really want to envision it. You really want to see this kind of opening up for you, right? And then at some point, when you feel like you've connected, you'll start to use Okay, so I've added my ice, and I'm just going to bless and activate the ice so that we can lock into that space. Freeze the moment of the person who is our future self. Freeze that moment. Stop so that we can interface with that person. Don't go above it, behind it, left or right from it. Freeze it right where we want it to be. And keep that portal open long enough for the messages to go through and for messages to come back. And we will keep the portal open until the ice melts. I hope that makes sense to you. It makes sense to me. It worked. So I don't know what to tell you if you don't understand what I'm saying. I hope that does. The real ones are going to get it. They're going to understand what the purpose of the ice is. And yeah. Okay. All right. So now we're going to light our candle. Wow. Okay. It's on. All right. And we're just going to spend a little time focusing our energy that the light of the candle begin to open the portal and send conscious energy and awareness that this is our light pathway towards the intended outcome. Now that we have locked in to where we want it to go, this is the access point, the portal of light that it will go through to be sent and released to that timeline. I hope that makes sense. So you're just going to spend a little bit of time here focusing on the light, imagining that telephone conversation, you've dialed in the numbers. They are locked into the system. The ice has frozen those numbers into the system. And the light is the ringing and the signal that matches you. When you feel that the time is right, when you feel that the moment is right, you will pass your envelope through the flame and allow the portal's light to take up the entire envelope in flame, and then you'll drop it into your cauldron. You probably want to have like a heat-safe bowl on the other side of this so that you can easily drop it. But the portal light is how the message gets sent, okay? So I'm just going to stay here for a second. Okay. Okay, so as you can see, I burnt the letter, and then after that period of time, which you don't see on camera because I went into my own like meditative practices, I sat with a notepad and I began to write. I actually have two pages here of the response from myself, plus a little PS. And this is the same thing that came up for me the last time. It came as a it almost felt like a thought, but it felt like I was having someone talk to me over my shoulder while I was writing and tell me like, okay, this is, you do this and do this and do this. So I actually have here some really good information that makes me less stressed out about moving and packing my stuff. I don't know if you guys, enjoy or are good at packing things up, but I am not. And it is a headache, and sometimes you just don't know where to even begin to start. And this has given me some real clarity and making some dents in some places where it'll clear out a lot of stuff for my head to actually be able to think about it. And I actually end up saying that at the end, with all the things that it gave me, it was like she knew once all this was figured out, I'd be able to figure out the rest and throw away anything else that doesn't matter, and be pretty hard line. And she also gave me a little PS note to remind me not to go out and not to go to any bars or to drink at all in these next couple of weeks until I'm done moving, because it could slow me down and I could, lose a day or two, which is very true. I do not bounce back from alcohol like I used to. But that is for this one. The one that I did originally was a little bit more on the broad, I guess, side. And when I made it was more to like get me out of the rut that I was in. And I really I didn't have any idea like what it was that I could change, what it was I could do. And I wanted to ask my future self, because I knew that she would be aware of what it was that I was going through right now and be sensitive enough to say things in a way that would not downplay where I was at, but also wouldn't let me cop out and wouldn't let me, be in a pity party or whatever the case may be. And that's exactly what happened. Like, literally the first thing that came up was a list. And it was just a list of things and activities that I could do to pull myself out of negative thinking, self-doubt, sadness, lethargic energy, things that I hadn't even really been thinking about or thought of. A lot of different things were on here, and one of the aspects was something that she wanted me to do the very next day after I finished the ritual, which I did do, to kickstart moving that energy and clearing that energy from my body. And then she gave me some things that I could just do periodically throughout the next couple of weeks to just get myself in a better headspace. And it really shifted a lot. It allowed me to actually feel good enough to start doing the videos and doing a lot of other things that I needed to complete that I had been kind of stagnant on being able to make moves forward with. Another element of it was once they got out of like there just being like a list, because I feel like sometimes, especially with people who are neurodivergent, that's like the best way sometimes to get things cleared is to just write it out, right? Once I got the list of all the things, like, okay, now you can come back and you can look at this whenever you start to wonder, like, okay, well, what do I do? Instead of it being like hard set, do these things, it was in list form so that I could feel like I could pick and choose from whatever it is and have some variety, I guess. But then it turned into an actual message, and I just began to write to myself, because in the original message that I had asked about like things that I could do to get myself out of the funk, but I also was speaking about what I was going through. And while the portal was open after I had burnt the letter, I really sat there and I spoke to the flame. I spoke to I just spoke what I was feeling and how I was feeling and what was going on, and you know, just really from my heart, like expressing like, this is where I'm at and this is where I would like to be, and I know that I can rely on me. You know, I can rely on me to be honest with me, and you know, I really need a compassionate response back, and that's what I got. And you know, but in my own voice, like, it was me. Like, I could tell just in the way that I spoke and the way that I was carrying myself and the way that I know that I am when I'm doing well, the way that I write and the way that I encourage other people when I'm doing well, that showed up in the messages. And you could say it was my spirit guides, my ancestors, my angels, whatever, but it still was something that was very meaningful and something that did make me feel like, okay, you know what? I have actually been getting some signs here and there that I haven't really been paying attention to, and there are some things that I still need to work on. But it's felt so good to have somebody who knew what I was going through convey back to me that not only was it going to be okay, but that I could do it. Like, that it was going to be like that I had it within me to complete these things, and that I was going to find it, and that there is a better outcome. And so it was really empowering. And you know, I know some people may have whatever opinions about it, like, oh, is it really you? Is it your higher self? Whatever the case may be, it doesn't even matter, because the activation of that and the genuine desire to connect to that version of me that already had the things that I wanted and already accomplished those things and was not struggling with what I was struggling with at that time, it came through so powerfully. And I look back at I have it here, and I look back at some of the things that were written, and it speaks about a lot of different things and a lot of different aspects, things I didn't even talk about in the original letter, just other things that I needed to keep in mind and other things that I needed to know. And I'm not going to share that with you, obviously, for obvious reason, but it was just like, I was like, huh, interesting. I'm going to keep that on advisement, you know, situations, people, and just continuing to keep my vibration high. And this is something that I will do for the rest of my life, if I can. However long I will be here on this planet, I will always access this type of magic, and this type of divination. And I'm so happy to be able to share it with you guys. I would love to hear what your experience is, if you decided that you wanted to change some things or add some other elements that mattered to you. I would try it the way that of course, if you don't have a singing bowl, then you can use, like I said, a regular bowl. And if you just want to play some frequency music and, just send positive energy into the water, you can do that too. Make it work. Be a crafty witch. And I'd love to hear what your experiences are. If you have a experience, feel free to tell us about it in the comments section, and maybe share about how you changed it and adapted and made it your own, because that's what it's about, finding the magic your way. And I'm so happy to be back on here talking to y'all. Y'all doing? We're coming to the close of 2021. I also want to make a little shout out and announcement and just say thank you to everyone who has streamed my album, Elixir and Smoke Volume 1. I really appreciate you guys. I go on there and I see the numbers of people who streamed it, and I'm blown away sometimes by how many people have found me from all over the world. And so I just want to say I love you guys so much. And if you haven't had a chance to go check out the album, it's on all major music streaming platforms, and the album's called Elixir and Smoke Volume 1. and you can find it under my my artist name, Alexis Nicole Jackson. But I will see you guys in my next video. Be blessed.
Pull out the candles, pull out the crystals, pull out the recipe.